On day 8 of the Anthropic export ban, something absolutely bizarre just happened. The President of the United States told Axios he no longer considers Anthropic or their CEO Dario Amodei a national security threat, yet the Commerce Department directive keeping Fable 5 and Mythos 5 offline worldwide remained legally in force. Think about that contradiction for a second. Imagine your neighbor says you're not dangerous anymore, shakes your hand at a community gathering, but the police still keep your house locked down anyway. That's where we are right now. The wild part, Anthropic executives publicly expressed confidence that their models would return in the coming days. But here's what the headlines are missing. Hundreds of thousands of enterprise customers faced a financial gut punch on June 20. The refund deadline slammed shut at 11:59 p.m. Some companies bet their entire workflows on Fable 5. They paid between June 9 and 14, assuming they were buying stable, permanent access. Now they are either waiting for money back or holding assets that might vanish tomorrow. This wasn't a small inconvenience. This was real financial fallout hitting real businesses. So how did we get to this point? Why would the president say one thing while his own government does another? And what does this chaos mean for the entire AI industry moving forward? Let's find out. To understand why we're in this mess, we need to rewind about a week and a half. Anthropic is a San Francisco AI company that builds large language models, basically software that can understand and generate human language with scary accuracy. They've been one of the major players in the AI arms race, competing directly with OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and DeepSeek from China. But on June 9, something changed. The United States Commerce Department issued a directive that essentially froze Fable 5 and Mythos 5 from being accessed outside America's borders. The ban wasn't announced with a press conference or a tweet. It was a quiet bureaucratic move that caught most people off guard. The reasoning? The Commerce Department alleged that these models posed national security risks because of their capabilities and the company's technical sophistication. Now, Anthropic obviously disagreed. They argued that the ban was overly broad and harmful to legitimate research and business users. But for a week, the directive stayed in place. Then came the curveball. President Trump, during a conversation with European leaders at a G7 summit in France, seemed to soften. He told reporters, and this is key, that he no longer saw Anthropic as a national security threat. That's a huge statement coming from the person who just authorized the ban. But here's the plot twist that nobody expected. So what exactly are Fable 5 and Mythos 5, and why did Commerce even care? Fable is Anthropic's flagship large language model. Think of it as a more capable, more safety-conscious competitor to GPT-4. These models can do everything from writing code to analyzing documents to having genuine conversations that feel almost human. The reason they are valuable to businesses is speed and cost. Running Fable 5 is significantly cheaper and faster than running its competitors, making it attractive for enterprise customers with tight budgets. Mythos 5 is Anthropic's specialized reasoning model. It's designed to tackle harder problems that require deeper logical thinking, kind of like the difference between a calculator and a mathematician. Now here's where the national security angle comes in. The Commerce Department was concerned that if these cutting-edge models fell into the hands of certain countries or groups, they could be weaponized or used to accelerate hostile AI development. It's a legitimate concern in theory. AI could theoretically help with weapons design, surveillance, or cyber attacks, but the ban was absolute, not just to high-risk countries, not just restricted, complete freeze, no exports, no cloud access from outside America's borders. And that meant thousands of companies in Europe, Asia, and Australia suddenly couldn't use the tools they'd bet their operations on. This is where it gets complicated. Let's talk about real people and real money. Between June 9 and 14, right when the ban hit, hundreds of thousands of enterprise users were still subscribing to Fable 5, paying monthly for access, assuming the product was stable and here to stay. They weren't casual hobbyists. These were companies with serious operations built on top of Fable's capabilities. A customer services team using it to handle inquiries. A research firm relying on it for data analysis. A startup that integrated Fable into their core product. Then the Commerce Department pulled the plug. No warning, no negotiation period. The company went dark overnight. These customers had two choices: wait for resolution or request a refund. And the deadline, June 20 at 11:59 p.m. That was only 11 days after the ban started. 11 days to notice your primary tool is gone. Escalate through your company's procurement team, file a request, and get it approved. Some people made it, many didn't. For those who missed the window, the question became, do I hold onto this asset hoping Anthropic wins and I get access back, or do I fork over money to rebuild my entire workflow with GPT-4 or Claude? The financial damage wasn't huge for individual consumers, but for enterprise teams with hundreds or thousands of users. The refund was substantial, and the entire situation exposed something uncomfortable: how much corporate infrastructure now depends on a single company's product. Here's what makes this worse. So here's the bizarre bit. Trump says Anthropic is no longer a national security threat, but the Commerce Department directive is still legally in force. How can both things be true at the same time? Well, technically, the president can change his mind, but changing an official government directive doesn't happen overnight. There's paperwork, there's legal review, there's probably back and forth between departments. Trump's statement was political signaling, basically telling the market and Wall Street that he's open to a resolution. But the actual on-the-ground ban, that's still happening. It's like someone saying they want to fix a broken bridge while the bridge is still broken and nobody's allowed to cross it yet. Anthropic is stuck. They got what sounds like a green light from the president, but they are still operating under a ban issued by the executive branch. Technically, Trump could directly order the Commerce Department to lift the directive tomorrow, but that's a bold move politically. It looks like he's overruling his own people. Meanwhile, the ban stays. Fable 5 stays offline. And the longer this drags on, we are already 8 days in, the more damage it does to Anthropic's reputation and their customers' trust. The contradiction isn't accidental. It's a sign that something bigger is happening behind closed doors. What does all this mean for the rest of the AI industry? Well, it's frankly terrifying if you're running an AI company right now. The United States government just showed that it can freeze your product overnight with virtually no warning, regardless of whether it actually poses a real security risk or not. There's no clear process, no appeal, just a directive and you're done. For OpenAI, Google, Meta, and every other AI company, this is a massive cautionary tale. If the government decides your model is a problem, they can make it vanish from a third of the world instantly. It's the digital equivalent of a trade war, and it's escalating faster than anyone anticipated. The implications are huge. First, it creates an incentive for AI companies to relocate their entire operations outside the United States to avoid this kind of risk. If your company is in the European Union or Singapore or the United Arab Emirates, United States can't regulate you the same way. Second, it reveals deep uncertainty about what United States policy actually is toward AI. One day the government's banning advanced models. The next day the president's saying they're fine. Companies can't plan around that kind of whiplash. Third, it's terrible for collaboration. Researchers in Europe who want to study cutting-edge AI can't anymore. Scientists can't access the same tools their colleagues have in the States. This is when innovation actually suffers. Okay, so what's actually happening right now to resolve this? Well, Anthropic is in daily technical meetings with the Commerce Department. That's not speculation. Anthropic's executives have publicly confirmed it. These aren't casual chats. They're focused negotiations about what safeguards Anthropic would need to put in place to get Fable 5 and Mythos 5 back online. The prediction markets are actually pricing this situation, and here's where it gets interesting. As of right now, traders are putting 57% odds on Anthropic's models being restored before July 1. That's a huge vote of confidence from people who are literally betting money on the outcome. What that tells us is the market thinks this is mostly theater at this point. Trump's softening statement signals the negotiations heading toward a deal. But nobody knows for sure, and that uncertainty is dangerous for Anthropic's business. Meanwhile, Anthropic executives are publicly saying they are confident the models will return in the coming days. That's a bold statement considering the directive is still legally binding, but it suggests they've got inside information about where the negotiations are heading. The question isn't really if the ban lifts anymore, it's when. And when it does, there's going to be a rush of enterprise users trying to reconnect. But here's the thing that actually matters most. So where does this leave us? Here's what you need to know. The ban on Fable 5 and Mythos 5 is a watershed moment for how governments regulate AI. Yes, the president softened his stance. Yes, negotiations are happening. And yes, the markets give it better than 50-50 odds that models get restored before July 1. But the speed at which the United States government can freeze an entire company's product is shocking. And the fact that it did so without clear warning or a real appeals process should worry every AI founder in the world. For enterprise users, if you got a refund before June 20, count yourself lucky. If you missed it, you're in a holding pattern, either waiting for Anthropic to win or already scrambling to rebuild your workflows on GPT-4 or Claude. For the rest of us watching this unfold, the real story isn't about Fable 5 at all. It's about whether democracies can regulate artificial intelligence responsibly or whether we are going to swing between extremes, banning everything one day and encouraging everything the next. That's the question that actually matters. Follow for daily AI news to see how this resolves.